You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking day. Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bro Down Podcast. My name's Tim Fulton.
I am Andy Smith.
And this is Fight Fan Weekly, where we go over some fight news for you guys. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Let's get into it. It's our second one of this week.
Second one of this week. That's right, because there was no fight. So we're going to start by talking about the McGregor Charity thing. You read this more than I did. All I know is that he's given $1 million
Yeah.
from the sales of his whiskey.
Yeah, I guess they were doing $5 or something out of every sale going to putting aside to the first responders. And,
okay.
And after $1 million, they are going to gave it away.
That's cool.
And I guess he did it on the first year anniversary of the whiskey. I was reading through the comments, and it's like, everyone's like, he's just doing it for publicity. He's a fucking scumbag and this and that. I'm like, yeah, because how much money did you give the charity this year, dickhead? Just leaving comments and no money?
I mean, it is $1 million.
I don't care if it's 20 grand, $5. He's giving it to charity.
Yeah.
Leave him alone. He's fucking using it for publicity. Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
He's in that game. Yeah. Like, some people give it away and don't say shit. I think everyone respects that more.
Yeah.
Just because whatever. They're like, when they find out, like, oh, did you know that Robert Downey Jr. gave $10 million in 2007? I didn't know that. He's a good guy. Good guy.
I mean,
but
going back to your point, one, who cares if it was a publicity stunt? It's still $1 million going to a charity, so who fucking cares? Two, if it was a publicity stunt, that would have been one of the most expensive publicity stunts he could have pulled.
Yeah.
He could have done 10 other things that would have been better. Plus, he doesn't need the publicity.
Well, no. Publicity is always good.
Shut up.
It's always good, right?
No,
does he need it? No. But it obviously helps. It gets him in the papers and the papers. It gets him on social media or whatever.
Get your paper here.
But they're acting like the first responders are like, oh, thanks for the $1 million. Wait a minute. Did you put this on social media? Yeah. You know what? We don't want your fucking money. That's notes. They're not doing that. No, the guy gave him $1 million. What the fuck?
Why are we even arguing about it?
Yeah.
It's stupid.
I don't just take
Just take the guy.
So many people hate online. Which brings us to this.
The MMA fighter list. Going from what is it? Going from the GOATs to those who aren't even a fighter.
These
everyone, just so everyone knows, we're about to see Andy get a little heated.
Yeah. Keep in mind, I usually have one or two reactions, and I've been better recently within the last, couple of years about being more like, all right, people are dumb. Or people just do this shit just to make a fucking,
just to get a reaction.
They're like, oh, I started watching MMA like 5 years ago, and I know everything there is to know about it. So the only fighters that exist are the ones that I know about. And like, whatever I read is law.
No, that was pretty much a complete list. That was every fighter.
Yeah, exactly. See?
What?
I see what you're doing. But
do you want to see it? Do you want to check it out?
Yeah. Let's check out the list. Now, this is what I'm gonna read the list off because I can see everyone on there, but they're kind of grainy. Okay, so they ranked fighters, and this is any fighter that they could have picked.
Ever.
There's any fighter that they could have picked, right? And I have a couple problems with some of the fighters on there.
Is Tank Abbott not up there?
Fuck you. Okay. So, you have GOAT status. You have John Jones, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre. Those three, I think if you're talking about GOATs, everyone else would be like, all right. Like, those guys have all been considered for GOAT status in the past, and they still are considered for GOAT status.
Okay.
Little precursor to this, probably one of the biggest Chuck Liddell fans of all time back in the day. I'm not sure why they chose to put him on that list.
I mean,
you're looking at GOAT status, greatest of all time, right? You have George St. Pierre up there, who has won 2 different belts, long time 170-pound reigning champ, right? Fought everyone who's who, never lost or never never didn't rematch and win somebody he lost to. So he lost to Matt Hughes, got that back. Lost to Matt Serra, got that back. Only 2 fights he's ever lost to.
Deltree YC saying Chuck could be a legend, but not a GOAT.
Exactly. See, I'm a huge Chuck Liddell fan, but when you look at the overall career, I think by the time Chuck became champion, because Tito had been ducking him for so long, he was like the first major star, one of the first major stars of the UFC that was like in the mainstream. So he didn't really have the because I think if he would have fought Tito earlier before he fought Randy, he would have had the belt a lot longer.
Okay.
But to say that he's a GOAT, I don't think you can say that in the terms that this list is putting them in. Because we're talking about criteria of greatest of all time, meaning if you put them in at any era, there'd be a fucking problem for the best of the best, right? Greatest of all time, career-wise, it takes everything into account. Now, in Chuck's prime...
I like how you're describing the criteria. I wonder what their criteria was. Like, I wonder if they just made a list and just started, like, being like, oh, well...
Yeah, I think because maybe Chuck's been
like
in the media a little bit lately, they're throwing him in there. But there's a couple guys that fit that criteria. Like, if Chuck's in there, why isn't Randy in there?
Yeah.
Randy had the 205-pound title. Then he came back at like 44 years old and won the heavyweight title and then defended the heavyweight title.
Yeah,
two different weight classes. And he beat Chuck. He beat Chuck in his prime. And then Chuck knocked him out twice. But he beat Chuck arguably like a year or two away from his prime.
Okay.
So I love him, but I don't understand that pick for that. There's a lot of other guys that you could exchange in there, like Mighty Mouse Johnson. Why isn't Mighty Mouse in there?
Yeah.
Like, he's in the legend category.
But he's not.
So let's go over the legend category. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Daniel Cormier, Nate Diaz, Jose Aldo, and Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Okay. Khabib. Legend in terms of what?
I'm not here to defend this list, so
I'm
if
you're talking about
even attempt it, but I do agree with you that if they were going to talk about legend versus, I mean, they have a category up there, future legend.
So legend,
so I would have thrown him there.
The guys I think should either be in legend status or that are deserving of legend status would definitely be Cormier, Jose Aldo, and Demetrius Johnson in terms of performancing or terms of performance.
Okay.
The reason I think that Daniel is not considered a GOAT status is because he never beat John Jones and he fought him twice.
Okay.
I think that's the reason why. If he had beaten John Jones, Daniel Cormier would replace John Jones in that category because he won belts in 2 different weight classes. Now, you have Nate Diaz in there. All right. Legend of the sport in terms of like folklore type shit. Like everyone just like what a big deal it was when Nate Diaz fought. Yes. Yes, of course. Legend in terms of performance. Yeah, he beat Conor McGregor. Conor moved up 2 weight classes.
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah, he fought Jorge Masvidal for the BMF title. But that was kind of like a one-off, and he got kind of destroyed, and not destroyed, but he got handled in that fight.
Yeah.
So if we're talking now, it's kind of like it almost seems like they're making this more so about like people's opinions about like outside of the ring shit than just inside of the ring shit. Because Jose Aldo had the belt for years. Demetrius Johnson, most title defenses in UFC history. Daniel Cormier, two division champion, and fought the who's who of people at 205. Khabib Nurmagomedov, he's undefeated. He hasn't lost more than a round, which was to Conor McGregor. I think it's still a little bit young to call him a legend yet. I think the reason why 2 of those guys are on that list is because they fought Conor McGregor. And that's the only reason they made it on this person's list is because of the notoriety they got from fighting Conor McGregor.
Which is ironic. I think whoever made this list just has a thing against Conor McGregor because he's going to be way down the list later on.
What did No Knock Warren say here? Diaz is good, but not a legend. It's because it was Conor. Yeah, see? Exactly. So I'm not saying that in certain terms Diaz is not a legend. I'm saying that in terms of the way that this list seems to have been put together, when you're talking about based off of their performances in the ring and their accolades, the hardware that they've collected, belts, title defenses and like title contention matches, shit like that.
Okay.
Now let's go to future legend. We have Israel Adesanya. That
Yeah.
looks like Francis Ngannou, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't tell.
Darren Till, Zabit, and Max Holloway. All right. Again, they just picked three random guys that they're like, oh, they're big names now. They're going to be future legends. Like 3 random fucking names.
Yeah, I think they're overestimating how much it takes to actually be considered a legend of the sport. Just because somebody is going on a tear right now in the UFC does not necessarily dictate the fact that they're going to be a legend of the sport.
Well, the thing is that depending on what we're talking about, like I consider there's a lot of legends of the sport.
Yeah.
But if you're going to try to make a list where it's like, all right, no,
tiered list.
let's fucking cut out all the shit. Who is the top of the top? It's like Israel Adesanya came in from kickboxing. He's a big name. He's getting a lot of hype. He's definitely making his way. He won 2 belts already.
Yeah.
2 interim belts. Well, technically the one wasn't the interim belt. It was the actual belt.
Yeah.
But he's had 2 title wins so far. One an interim and one the actual one. So, yeah, that he probably is going to be a future legend if this trajectory even stays remotely close to what he's at now. Francis Ngannou, he's a heavyweight. He's a big name. He's beaten a lot of good guys. He has a really good story. But there's a lot there. There's a lot that's got to get done. He's fought for the title, lost, but he probably would be a future legend. But I feel like them throwing him in there before other guys. Like, why isn't Robbie Lawler on this fucking list?
Oh yeah,
Right? Why isn't he on there? I don't understand that.
That's a good question.
So I'm not saying that he's not, but when you're looking at it. Is Stipe Miocic on this list?
No.
Stipe Miocic beat Francis Ngannou, has the most heavyweight title defenses out of any heavyweight ever, and just
beat DC.
and just beat the guy who beat him and took his title.
Yeah.
Who's arguably up for GOAT status.
Yeah.
Not according to this fucking list, but a lot of other people's lists he is. So you have that. Now let's go to Max Holloway. Definitely a future legend. They got this one right. Max is a future legend. I ain't got shit to say. Fucking love Max Holloway. He's fucking good. Okay. But again, Conor also beat him.
Yeah.
Conor beat him. Now, Conor beat him before he hit his prime and hit his stride, but Conor fucking still beat him. Darren Till. Darren Till had a real shitty run of fucking fights, and he just moved up to 185, where he had a very close fight against Kelvin Gastelum. Why is he on that list right now? Yeah. If this was a prospects list of like people that have the potential to become great fighters, yeah. But this to me seems like they're saying these guys are future legends because they're not old enough and they're still fighting in their career to a point where we don't consider them legends yet because they're not at the tail end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're just shy of they're like one fight away from being considered a legend. Darren Till is not. I'm sorry, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's just not.
He's a great guy. He's a good fighter.
Love
he's
him.
not a future
Fucking
legend.
Awesome fighter. But he is not in contention for a future legend where he's like 1 or 2 fights away from being like this, like, oh, fucking, he's got to be in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a ton of older fighters should. Yeah, exactly. No Knock Warren says a ton of older fighters could be on there too.
We're going to be getting to that, I feel like, in a couple of minutes.
Zabit is a up-and-comer, crazy talented. Future legend? I don't know. I don't know why he's on there.
That's the point.
I think it's too early to tell.
That's the point. We don't know.
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. And now it says good. I'm assuming this means good fighter.
Yeah, I would think.
I guess it means like solid fighter. I don't know. But they got Nick Diaz. That looks like Michael Bisping. It's got Jorge Masvidal, Amanda Nunes, and Tony Ferguson. Okay. Nick Diaz hasn't fought in a while. He would probably be on legend status before Nate as of right now, just because of his past fights. But because a lot of those happened before the MMA really became famous, not a lot of people know about it. Michael Bisping, probably one of the toughest sons of bitches to ever fucking do it, right? That guy is the product of, hey, I don't have one talent that's really, really excels. I'm just going to work harder than everyone else. And he is the product of that. That's a success. He just says, look, I don't have like Mike Tyson knockout power. I don't have crazy good kickboxing. I'm not a fucking phenomenal wrestler. Grew up in the UK. We don't have a lot of good wrestling over here. But what I can control is that I will work harder than everyone else and I will get my cardio to a ridiculous level. And yeah, exactly. Lost a fucking eye to the sport. And I believe won the title basically blind. And then defended the title against a guy who knocked him out, looked like he killed him, in Dan Henderson. So I guess he's good, but he should be on the fucking Legends list. Like, he should be on the future Legends list at least.
I guess he's good.
Yeah. I guess you would say he's fucking good.
I would imagine he's good.
And then Jorge Masvidal. 2 tiers above him, right above him, is Nate Diaz, the guy that he just fucked up.
Yeah.
For the BMF belt.
Which happened before this list came out.
Yeah.
So
Jorge Masvidal is the perfect example of a guy, and I'm super happy that this is a thing, where a guy could go from obscurity to super famous like that.
Yeah.
So nobody knew who the fuck Jorge Masvidal was. And then he had a fist fight with Ian Edwards.
Okay.
Backstage, got him a lot of notoriety. And he said that line about, I gave him a 3-piece and a soda. Everyone thought that was hilarious. Then he knocked out Ben Askren in 5 seconds.
Beautiful fight.
Beautiful fight.
5 seconds.
Everyone fucking goes nuts. Then he fights for the BMF belt. If you ask people before the Jorge Masvidal or before the Ben Askren fight, who should fight for the BMF title, his name is not in that list.
That's true.
If you look at it in terms of who has the most like street cred, like crazy motherfuckers who will fight you in an elevator or on the fucking family barbecue, it's Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. Like, those guys are BMFs. But if you're talking about like scary dudes in the ring that people know about, he's not on that list because no one knew who he was. No mainstream people knew who he was.
Not until the Askren fight.
Yeah, but I guess he's just good. Nate Diaz is a legend, but Jorge's just good. Amanda Nunes. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I was waiting for you to get to this one.
She beat everyone that was considered the best.
Yeah.
She beat everyone that was considered the best. Like, Jorge's been really good for a long time. But the problem with Jorge on this list is that Nate Diaz is above him, and nobody knew who Jorge was. And if we're talking about accolades, he should be above him. Like, he should be higher up on that rank because of the BMF title and the rest of the accolades that he's gotten since then. Nate Diaz has never won a title. Technically, Jorge has a title.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a random made up one, but he has it.
And then Amanda Nunes. Why the fuck is she just good? She's got 2 different belts and 2 different weight classes.
In the picture, she's literally holding 2 belts.
Yeah. She beat Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
She beat Holly Holm.
Yeah.
She knocked out Chris Cyborg.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you need? What else do you need? She's GOAT. She's GOAT status. That's it. It's end of story.
No, that's fair.
I don't care if she fought Cyborg, a little after Cyborg's prime, because Cyborg was so ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
She still knocked her the fuck out. Okay? That's it. That's done. Cyborg left the UFC. We're probably never going to see the rematch. Amanda Nunes is GOAT status. Tony Ferguson. He is on the good status. I mean, he's had a lot of bad runs with like injuries and stuff like that. A lot of people, especially like MMA guys, think that he's the dude to beat Khabib because of his style.
Oh, really?
Yes, because he's a guy who, when you take him down, he's so crafty off of his back, and not only that, he will arguably win rounds from his back, from the strikes he lands from his guard.
That's hard.
Yes. Almost nobody does it. I think he might have won 1 round in the UFC from that. From being on his back, he threw like a ridiculous amount of elbows and just sliced the dude's face up. I forget who it was. So let's go on to overrated. Okay, we'll go on to overrated.
Starting off with the legendary, ironically, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Conor McGregor's overrated. Okay, let's go over the amount of people he beat that are above him on this list. Nate Diaz, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway. He didn't fight, what's his name? And I don't think he fought Tony Ferguson. There's 3 people on this list, right? 2 of which are in legend status that he beat.
Yeah.
But he's overrated.
Yeah. See, I think this is the problem with this list to begin with, is that the criteria for each like category doesn't have to be the same as the other categories. You know what I mean? Conor McGregor could technically, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm not for this list by any stretch of the imagination, right? But Conor McGregor could have all the accolades to make him a legend, which I think would be fair, but still also be considered overrated. Does that make sense? That's why I have a problem with this list, because
who are we talking about being overrated against? About what people like? If we're talking about the average person who knows nothing is just saying like, oh yeah, you know, it's like the Jets are unbeatable or the fucking Patriots or this and that. Yeah. Like, yeah, if you take those guys' opinions, then everyone they like is overrated.
Fair.
But when you take the general consensus, the guy came in, he fought everybody that he said, anybody that you want to put in front of me, I'll fight them. Yep. Right? Not only that, he talks so much shit saying, I'm going to knock this dude out in the first round. Does it? Oh, I'm going to knock this guy in the second round. Does it? He did that like 4 times where he called the round he was going to knock the person out in. Pretty hard to do. Yeah, wins the interim title on a short notice against a wrestler. Granted, Chad Mendes only had a couple, same notice as him, so he was out of shape. But again, both guys had a late notice change. Yeah. Conor was in camp. But then goes out, fights Jose Aldo, knocks Jose Aldo out in 13 seconds.
Yeah. I didn't
know
that, but okay.
Then he goes up, beats Eddie Alvarez, makes Eddie Alvarez look not good, which is very fucking hard to do to get to Eddie Alvarez. And then he goes, all right, I'm going to fight Nate Diaz at 170. He just was fighting at 145. And he fights Nate Diaz, loses. And then everyone's like, oh, see, told you, whatever. Great performance by Nate. But again, 2 fights before that, Conor was 145 pounds. Right?
Yeah.
Comes back and Conor says, I don't want to fight Nate at a lower weight class. I want to fight him at the same weight class I lost to him at. Because I don't want people saying that I only beat him because it was at 155. I want the same rules, the same everything, because I want to beat him at that. You can never call that dude a fucking coward. Ever. Comes back and fucking beats him. Erases the loss. So, how the fuck is he overrated? He's got 2 different belts in 2 different weight classes, and he's also the first fucking dude to ever hold them at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Okay?
A little overrated.
Yeah. So then we have Ronda Rousey. Now, why does everyone say Ronda Rousey's overrated?
I don't know. I think maybe it's because for her, I'm going to say it doesn't have to do with skill so much as it has to do with notoriety, right? She's easily the most famous woman UFC fighter to date.
Yeah, well, I think
specifically to non-fans.
Yeah, I
think that's fair, right?
Yes. I think that the problem with Ronda Rousey is that when Ronda Rousey was on top, the game for women's MMA was not as evolved as she was. She was ahead of the curve. Yeah. She was way ahead of the curve. But what happened was she was fighting girls who weren't as good as her, but that's not her problem. That's not her fault. It's like saying, oh, Roy Jones Jr. in the 90s, he's not good because the guys he fought weren't even close to him. Well, is that Roy Jones Jr. Fault for being that good? Mm-hmm. He's just that much more ahead of everyone else. And then when he finally runs into somebody at the later in his career, and they're like, oh, well, see, he beat him. We told you he wasn't that good. Oh, you mean the last 10 years he was fighting were all dog shit performances? Keep in mind, she finished every one of her fights with an armbar. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That's right.
Now, she might be the reason I say that she's probably the most aptly for this category as far as people saying overrated, for the sole purpose of people saying shit and then people agreeing with stuff like, oh, she could beat Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match type shit.
Yes.
And you're like, wait a minute, what? That's the only reason why I say that. But as far as being overrated, she lost 2 fights. She got destroyed in both of those fights. But the game had caught up to her. She had some injuries. She has a horrible head coach.
Well, No Knock Warren has a point over there. So everyone up until that point, it depends on what your definition of overrated is, right?
Yeah.
Up until that point, I see what you're saying about the women UFC just hadn't caught up to her yet. She was well ahead of the curve. But she was looking like she was unstoppable.
Yeah,
Like she was-
people. If you ask
but
people
but
who
she wasn't.
exactly, if you ask people before she fought Holly Holm, what do you think is going to happen? Everyone said Holly Holm gets armbarred.
Oh,
Everyone would have said that.
I was there. That's one of the few fights before we actually started doing this full time that I was wholly into.
Yeah.
You know, like one of those. I remember that moment explicitly.
Uh-huh.
But that's the point. Everyone thought she was unstoppable, but now apparently she wasn't. She got rocked in the face. She got knocked out. So I can see for her hitting that status for that reason.
But do you know what the other reason is? Is because she talks so much shit.
She does.
That people were so glad when she lost. They loved her when she was winning, but her whole persona was based off of that, I'm the baddest bitch on the planet.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
So, and she also was one of the better
went down a
cases
weird
of like
spiral.
getting, what's that?
She went down a really weird spiral.
Yeah, well,
afterwards.
she was also one of the, like, it's very documented about like her being way over the top with like commitment wise, like doing movies and doing interviews, like so many distractions. And that's where Conor was smart when he was on top. He didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
He didn't have any of that bullshit. He just stayed focused on what he was doing. So to a certain degree, I say, yeah, overrated. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a shit how you feel about her. She's a legend of the sport. There would be no female MMA if it was not for Ronda Rousey.
And this is where I circle
That's
back
it.
to there's an inherent problem with this list because each category has its own criteria.
Yes.
Just because you're in one area does not mean you can't be in another.
That's true.
That's how I've been looking at this.
Next one, Alistair Overeem. Okay, Alistair Overeem.
Coming up on the 17th or something like that. The 5th?
Yeah.
5th, I think.
If Alistair Overeem did not take so much damage when in his younger career, I believe he would be UFC champion. The problem with Alistair Overeem is that he has taken so much damage that he can't really take a hard shot anymore.
Yeah.
And he gets knocked out very easily, and he has a horrible poker face. He can't like some guys are like they get rocked and they're like, all right, like Robbie Lawler, like he'll look like he's like, you know what I mean? Like some guys are really good at it.
Cut his lip right
Yes,
open.
you saw it fucked him over too. He was eating horse meat. No, not warrant. It wasn't steroids. Horse meat. He's from Holland. So the problem with Overeem, number one, he makes a really good point because when Overeem first came over, they used to call him Ubereem. He looked like the Hulk if the Hulk had better abs. Okay, so when he came over, he's probably the best, if not one of the top two best heavyweight strikers of all time in the UFC. End of story.
If he doesn't get caught.
Huh?
If he doesn't get
No,
caught.
no, I'm talking just striking.
Okay.
Like even like you're gonna get caught, but the problem with him is that he has to alter his game so much because he can't take a shot. So if you watch how he fights, he only ever throws one strike at a time, maybe two, because he's so nervous about getting caught. If he goes with a combination, he doesn't have the chin anymore. So if you watch how he fights, everything is like one shot. It's just one strike, maybe two. That's it. Like he doesn't get into these things where he's trying to throw like 3-4 punch combos. So what he'll do for the first round is he'll kind of dance around, and he's such a high level striker that all he's doing is feinting, and he's trying to look how the guy is moving so that he can find his openings. Because he's doing those calculations in his head, he knows like, all right, when I do this, that guy's dipping his shoulder.
Yeah.
I can throw this strike at this angle, and it's going to catch him, and he's very good at it. But he has no chin anymore. So he came in. He destroyed Brock Lesnar, destroys a bunch of guys, and he lost to a lot of guys that he should have beat because a couple of them because of his ego. To be honest with you, he drop his hands against fucking certain guys and act like he had him hurt, like against Travis Brown. He had Travis Brown was almost as close to a fighter can get from tapping out from pain from body shots, and Overeem just got cocky, just let him off the hook, and he got knocked out with a fucking front kick to the face. Like he just. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's on the overrated list at all. And then Brock Lesnar. I don't understand how this guy's on the overrated list. He came into the UFC with one fight. Had never fought before that one fight. He gets Frank Mir, a former world champion. He almost beats Frank Mir. He gets stood up in a dominant position because of one back of the head strike, which was to the back of the head. Frank Mir ends up knee barring him. Okay. But then he goes on a tear and wins the belt and then defends the belt a couple times. From a guy who had no fighting experience. He was a wrestler.
Yeah. What is there to overrate there?
Yeah, what is there to overrate? Okay, he had diverticulitis the entire time, by the way. They had to remove, like 2 feet of his fucking intestine.
Ugh.
And then, 6 months after the surgery, he fights Alistair Overeem, who kicks him where? In the stomach.
I remember seeing that fight.
Okay, like, I don't see how the guy's overrated. All right, what do we got here in the comments section?
Brock probably would have been fine if he started younger. Was pretty good as it was. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if the whole point of the category is who is overrated.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't think he's overrated because that's a guy, too, like in Brock Lesnar. Even Brock's big knock was always like he doesn't like to get hit. Well, I don't know too many people that do like to get hit, but I know what they're saying.
Yeah.
So the thing is with Brock, though, is that if you take Brock Lesnar and you put him in there against anyone, number one, it's going to sell the fight. But number two, he's got a pretty good fucking shot of winning against almost anyone because he's a fucking powerhouse wrestler. And, he probably weighs like 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, he's a big fuck.
Yeah.
And then we got Ben Askren. Ben Askren, I don't think should be in here because he came into the UFC after his prime. He'd been retired. He should have been in there earlier. He gets put up against Robbie Lawler, his first fight. Robbie sends him into the dark lands like 3 times during that fight where he got clearly knocked out. And he came back to life like a fucking zombie. And then he wins against Robbie Lawler. Now, Robbie didn't tap. Saying, in my opinion, is that Robbie didn't tap, but I understand why Herb stopped the fight.
Okay.
Then he fights Jorge Masvidal. Now, Jorge was practicing that knee, that flying knee, all that shit.
We've had this discussion before.
Anyone that fucking gets kneed in the face like that, they're going to get knocked out. Okay. And then he fights Damian Maia, 2 of the best grapplers to ever be in the UFC. 2 of the best. They fight. And guess what? One of them lost.
Yeah.
So why is he on the fucking overrated list? Whatever. Now we go, okay, so there's 2 different bottom categories, almost getting to the end of this. We have trash. Okay.
I want to see the fighting career of whoever made this list, but continue on.
Yeah, so you have Sage Northcutt. You have Paige Van Zant. You have Artem Lobov. It looks like James Toney. Okay, he fought once in the UFC. I think that's James Toney. And then I can't tell who that is. So...
we should have wrote that.
Numero uno. The first 2, from the hype that they got to what they said, if anyone on this list should be in the quote-unquote overrated, it's probably the first 2.
Okay.
Definitely probably Sage Northcutt. Came in, a lot of hype, good-looking dude, striking style, all this stuff. But when they put him against heavier competition, didn't do so well. Now, he wasn't being heralded as like this world beater. He was just kind of like the up-and-coming guy. So probably a little bit overrated when it turned out. Same thing with Paige Van Zant. But again, they're not trash. If they were trash, they probably wouldn't be in the UFC.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
Right?
The standards you have to uphold to even get into the UFC are just next level.
And Artem Lobov. Oh, gee, what do you know? One of Conor McGregor's best friends gets put on the trash list right below Conor.
Yeah, someone really does have a thing against Conor McGregor on this list.
James Toney. Okay, we're talking about UFC fighters, not boxers who had one fight in the UFC. James Toney was a fucking multi-division world champion in boxing. Came over and fought Randy fucking Couture. Okay? His one shot would have been hitting Randy coming in, and that would be it. But Randy literally shot in for a low ankle pick.
Smart.
But, like, you've never seen this ankle pick in the UFC because that's how safe it was to do it on Toney. Because he was like, yeah, I'm not going to train MMA because I'm just going to knock him out. They're like, you're not training takedown defense at all? He's like, nope. They're like, let us know how that works out against Randy Couture, the master of game plans. So, yeah, I guess if you put a guy who had one fight on a list, he'd be trash.
Yeah.
I don't think Artem Lobov or any other guys are trash. I don't even think James Toney might be trash in MMA because he literally said, I didn't train any MMA. And then you have not a fighter, CM Punk. I mean, he fought. He is a fighter, but yeah, he's not a fighter.
I feel like that one's just a joke.
Yeah, that one's
It
just a
has to be
joke.
just a joke, right?
I'm surprised Connor and Artem aren't on that list. So we'll just go over the comments list here real quick before we wrap this up. Would you scroll up on that a little bit, bud?
Whatever you saw it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Brock would have been better if he started younger. Agreed.
Ben Askren, a legend.
Agreed. He is a legend.
I mean, he's an Olympic medalist. How do you put him on
Yeah.
overrated?
Should have been on the. Oh, by the way, Ronda Rousey is too.
Yeah.
Olympic medalist. Yeah. Should have been in the UFC like 2013. Yeah, agreed. 100%. Tony was old and just looking for a check, I think. Exactly. How you going to knock the guy for that?
Yeah.
And it also was great for MMA because they said for years, what would happen if you put a boxer against an MMA fighter in an MMA fight? Well, we saw what happened. Yeah, of course, the MMA guy's not going to stand and try to box with the boxer. Why would he do that?
Stands to reason.
Why would he do that?
It's almost like a throwback to how MMA or how UFC started. Like the challenge of styles, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. So more of a fighter than the list maker. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How many fights have you had, sir?
I'm dying to know.
Yeah, Tony was an amazing boxer. At the right weight. He got a little hefty at there. But I think he won the belt after he gained all that weight. He was like, when he was younger in his prime, like shredded six-pack. And then it looked like he just was like, George Foreman grill, let's get on that. Like, just fucking barbecues all day. Like, he was...
All day, son.
He wasn't like super, super overweight, but he was so unhealthy looking as an overweight guy. Like his head looked like it was going to explode. And he was like not the most articulate person to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think the fat on his face was like hindering his movement of his lips, which made it even harder to understand him.
No, not Lauren. Like me. All right.
Yeah, it was even chubbier than your cheeks.
We're killing that list. We're bringing ourselves back.
Yeah, let's bring it back. So that was the dissection of that list.
I did tell you guys that Andy was going to get a little bit heated up on this one. I think I was accurate. I think we ran a little bit long.
Yeah, we did. We did. But it had to be done.
It was all necessary stuff.
It had to be done.
All necessary stuff.
Yes.
So for our live viewers, we're going to be back in 5 minutes for our very last podcast of the day. One more, what do you got? For our non-live listeners, why don't you go to brodownpro.com, check out all of our cool gear. We have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we have a bunch of other cool shit up there, so go check it out. Until then,
brodownpro.com.
We'll see you guys next time.
You're listening to Bro Down Podcast all fucking day.